matzeva. He made a matzeva on the place where he was buried. And the pasuk said that the matzeva, it's a place where people come to pray. And as Rachel is an emissary between us and God, so we see it's important to remember a person. And I'd like to bring down one more point. There's a Gemara, the Medrash actually, that says another reason why we're here tonight is that a person has three friends. He has his family, his children. He has his money. You know, people work hard for money. And they invest most of their life, so he must be considered a good friend. And he has his good deeds. The person works hard, he does good things, he does favors to people, he does mitzvot, he does good deeds. Three friends, basically, a person has in his life. When a person dies, his money's worthless to him. He says goodbye to him. Nothing left. You can't help him. Once a person's dead, his money can't do anything for him. His family stays with him until he goes to the funeral, goes to the burial, but then they put up a stone and they go away. But his good deeds are waiting for the person in heaven to fight before the heavenly throne by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make sure he gets a good place in heaven. Like you never see, you ever see someone, people go to cemeteries on the Matzeva, he was a rich man. You don't find that being written about a person on his grave. He had a beautiful home. He had a newest model car. You're not going to find that. But you'll find he was the Ish Tov, he was a Baal Chesed. He did favors for people. He was a good father, a good friend, a good person. That's called good deeds that are always remembered by people. We come here tonight to remember Shlomi in a way that maybe could change our lives a little. Maybe we could take out some deeds that Shlomi, the way Shlomi lived his life, that could continue Shlomi's life a little, even though he's not here physically, but we learn something from him. So even though he's not alive with us physically, somehow he left an imprint on us in this world. It's not just a memory. We take something from him and we put it into our lives. Every person in this room, and even people that are not here, knew Shlomi in a different way, could be. I knew him for over 20 years since he came first to America. He developed a relationship with my father of blessed memories on the shore on Rivington Street. Other people know him from the office, people know him from the shore, other people know him from other places, and everyone had their own encounters, their own experiences, and could relate to him in a different way. I could relate to him the way I knew him. And one thing I knew him, and I think everyone could say the same thing, is that Shlomi was always a happy fellow. He always had that smile on his face. Listen, how you doing? He says, Baruch Hashem, it's going to be okay. And it'll work out. He had hard times. He had very hard times. And he had situations he didn't know how he was going to be the next day to get through the next day. Rabbi, it's going to be okay. Hashem Yazor. Hashem Yazor. So, it's a very, that's, there's two ways to look at life. People look at life, the cup half empty, and you look at life, the cup half full. And it changes your whole attitude, the way you live life, but also it changes the way people live and people look at you, and you can also make people feel better and feel good. In this week's portion of the Torah, it says how Yaakov got married, our forefather Jacob got married, and he married Rachel, and he married Leah, and it says that, of course, we know the story, that Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel first, and his father-in-law had two daughters to marry off, so he wanted to kill two birds with one stone, so somehow he tricked in Yaakov and put Leah instead of Rachel. And then he was stuck, he didn't want to embarrass Leah. And then he married Rachel, he had two wives, Rachel and Leah, everyone knows the story. God gave Leah children before Rachel. And the Torah says why? Because Yaakov really liked Rachel. Leah was little, like, she did something not right over here. She tricked her husband to get married to her. And God wanted that Yaakov should like Leah, so he had a child, Ruvain. Next child, Shimon, Levi. The fourth child, she had Yehuda. We're all called Yehudim. And Jews are called Yehudi. And Shlomi was a proud Jew. He loved Israel, he loved the country, he loved the people, he hated the politics. But he loved the country, and he was proud to be a Jew. We're all called Yehudim, right? Why we call Yehudim? So the better question is, why did Leah, come inside, why did Leah give the name Yehuda to her child? So the Torah writes, the Torah says, interesting because the Torah says, Vatelu Bain, he had a son, Vatomesh, he said, Hapam Ode Es Hashem, I want to praise God. Al Kain Kora Shemo Yehuda. That's why I'm calling Yehuda, because Hoda is the language of praise. And the rabbis tell us in the Talmud, in the Gemara Katuv, that until Leah came around, no one ever praised God. The first time someone praised God was when Leah came around and gave us praise to her son, and thank God for her son, Yehuda. The question everyone asks is, we know that Adam HaRishon were Kabbanot. In the Noach, after the Teva, we thank God for saving him from the Teva. It was a Mabul. We thank God. Avraham Avinu, he made a war against four kings. He won the war. He thanked God. It was against nature to win this war. We find in other places in the Torah that people thank God. Why does the Talmud say that Leah, a woman, was the first person that thanked God? The answer is, because until this time, people thank God for unnatural occurrences. There was a Mabul. Noach was saved. God did a very big miracle. He made a teva, and the teva was able to live every part of humanity, every animal. It wasn't such a big building. And everyone stayed alive for a year's time. There was no refrigerations, and there was food for a whole year to last. There were lions, and no one killed each other. And it was a miracle that Noach was able to last for a year in that ark. Avraham Avinu to fight a war against these four kings. It was a miracle against nature. He could win this war. But Leah had a child. Women have children. It's a normal thing. 4 children is not unheard of. And she still said, I thank you, God, for having a child. That means she saw, even in nature, what to thank God for. And I think that was Shlomi. Shlomi always said, Baruch Hashem, thank God. He always lived for the day. He didn't say tomorrow, let's be tomorrow. Of course, he worried about tomorrow. But he was happy to be alive on this day, on the next day, and to enjoy that day to its fullest. Because he said, I thank God for having this day also. That was a midah that we saw by Leah. We thank God for having Yehuda. And it's something which I think we ought to learn from Shlomi. It's a good deed. It's the way he lived his life. To learn from him a little. And we take away tonight something that we can remember him in a certain way, that even though he's not here, we can remember that smile. We can remember him, his good cheer. People saying, people said bad things sometimes. He washed it off. He didn't take it seriously. He was able to go and stand up to people even though they weren't so nice. He looked away from things. He wasn't so particular, so sensitive, as you say in English. And that's something which is a virtue which not too many people have. So coming tonight, of course, we want to remember Shlomi, who he was, and what he could have been. We don't understand God's ways. The world is it's hard to understand a lot of things. But at least we have to realize that Shlomi went to Israel, he died in Israel. He would have wanted to die in Israel. You know, and he loved the country, and he died in the place where he loved, close to his family who he really loved. And, you know, Hashem Nasan, Hashem Lakach, Yishem Hashem Mevorach. Hashem gives, and Hashem takes, and Hashem's name is blessed. You don't understand everything he does. But we have to realize this Nekuda. Try to, some good deed. This is the good deed that Shlomi had. He had and he had a lot of good deeds. It's this one point to bring out. You can emulate him in certain ways, in this way. It just won't be a remembrance, but it'll be a difference to him in the other world, because he says that he made a difference. And people change because of him. People have a different attitude because of him. And in this way, it'll be a very, very big to'eles and a big sechus for his neshama. And we should all merit not to hear any sad news anymore. And his should be AZKARA l'tova. And his neshama should have, to say, that iluya, it should have an uplifting in heaven. And we should always remember him as the person who he really was. I'd like to now call up Mr. David Cohen, who was the boss